Recording, and I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, so today we're going to talk about utilities for the CDECO home. Yep. So the initial CDECO home, when we did the Kickstarter in 2016, 2015 or so, had various features. We had all of this that's shown here. So you've got energy waste treatment, heating and cooling, rainwater collection. We start with 3,000 watts of photovoltaic panels. Right now we have 6 kilowatts, super efficient lighting, super efficient top loading refrigerator, so basically converting a freezer into a refrigerator, a toilet that actually feeds into, with a modular plumbing panel that actually feeds into a biodigester. We had a water collection, compressed earth block floors, compressed earth block walls, hydronic heating under the floor, pellet burner, gray water garden, and we've implemented pretty much all of these things in one form or another. We had a C/B floor, for example, in the utility room. Most of our structures here were built of C/Bs when we started. So I'll go through like 3 main topics. So the waste system, the electric system, and now we're adding thermal battery. Thermal battery is the new player here, but a totally important one, and actually made accessible even since 2016 through low-cost photovoltaics, as well as heat pumps that really took off, and they work now. You can easily get heat pumps that work down to -22 Fahrenheit, whereas before it was a little worse than that, not that cold, that you could handle. Okay, we're going to start with the bathroom. So this is the one side of the bathroom, and this is the other. What's that? What's in between that? So this is actually a system with integrated waste management turning into a closed loop cycle. What are we doing there? So this is actually, you can have a biodigester system for primary treatment of the waste, out of which comes out effluent. You can also integrate some worm beds. We have worm beds in these, and actually the towers have worms, and we have fish in the ponds. But basically you can create a system where the effluent for the biodigester is a fertilizer for your aquaponics, and then you're growing food and you're closing the cycle. And that's pretty powerful. So that's actually pretty exciting. And at the end of the day, we're not going to put toilets draining into the sewer system. The closed loop will look like this. In an earlier model, we had a pedestal. So if you look at this pedestal thing under the toilet, modular plumbing panel pedestal underneath, this is what we implemented in the CDECO Home 1. And that system, what it does is when you flush for number 1, this actually goes into collection. We actually had urine collection as fertilizer that we would store in a 55-gallon drum. So that can go downhill. But when you flush number 2, you're activating the pump, which is shown in the bottom left-hand corner, and that goes to the biodigester. And the way the system is plumbed, if you just flush without activating the biodigester side, there's a weep hole in the system that prevents the urine going into the biodigester. You can collect it directly, actually. This is actually what we did. And, well, how do you keep this whole system from plugging up if you've got number 2 going in down the same way as number 1? Well, there's actually that red line there is a back flush connected to a solenoid valve where whenever you flush number 2, you're back flushing so that none of the solids get into the urine collection system. Cool. Okay. This was above an interface like this. So that's your toilet interface. So you could make it, in that example, we actually succeeded in making a toilet into a separating toilet without using a separating toilet. That's cool. It's actually pretty cool because separating toilets are a big deal, and it's like, you know, you can't really retrofit them into a house because you got to have special plumbing. So here, if you talk about a regular toilet, a common off-the-shelf part, and the plumbing module underneath that can separate, that way you can actually address the collection, utilization of waste. Here's the biodigester in the earliest stages of development. I'll talk about electricity second. So this is the 6 kilowatts on the Seed EcoHome 4. That's the inverter in the garage. DC going into the inverter at about 400 to 600 volts, and converting into house power, integrating with grid electricity. Okay. Yeah, that's going to be a standard feature on all the houses we built. So let's go to now the third major topic before I diverge into other things, but thermal battery. So let's delve into that. And what we will do in the next workshops is actually use a regular heat pump. Regular heat pump. What we have in Seed EcoHome, this actually house right here, we've got a heat pump, 24,000 BTU. We've got that in Seed Home 1, 4, and we're going to put it into 6. But here's what we're doing. Take a heat pump, which traditionally has an indoor unit for blowing the heat or cold, so you're talking about cooling or heating. Indoor unit, heating or cooling. That's the standard thing, using a standard off-the-shelf heat pump. What are we talking for a heat pump? Something like that. $1,700, 24,000 BTU, enough for maybe up to even 2,000 square feet.
Marcin, that's the same as those ductless mini splits?
Yep.
Yeah.
And this particular one, you have to look at their specs, but this particular one, Senville Aura, so A, Senville Aura goes down to negative 22F. Typically, so if you look at the specifications and stuff like that, the critical part here is going to be this. Whenever you get a heat pump, check that number. A lot of them go down to 10F. That wouldn't do here. We get down to negative 10 or 20. Make sure you check that. The cheap ones, the ones that maybe are even, you know, up to half this cost, they're going to be the ones that are at higher temperature. You can't take a solid winter like here. Okay, so we got that. Now, a heat pump has a refrigerant coil that goes into the indoor unit, but we can tap that heat. You can add much more pipe, and you can extract that heat. If you have a big heat pump, 2400, or get 2 of them, store the heat or cool from one. So we're talking about solar energy integration. If you run it during the day, but you want to store it during the night, take that hot pipe. So this is for, say, heating in the winter. So the heat pump will have a hot side and a cool side. Hot side will be 120 to 140. Cool side will be cooling like, I don't know, 60, somewhere around there. 60, 50, 40, 30. The coils on the back of the heat pump actually freeze. So the lower, like for cooling temperatures, the heat pumps can go actually, I would imagine like 30 to 60 or something for their range of cooling. So you can catch that fluid. You tap into the line. You use a pipe cutter, put some flares on that, use special fittings, cut that line, add another 100 feet of line, create a heat exchanger. What's a heat exchanger? A bunch of coiled tubing. You could have a heat exchanger where in this case what we have, you would have the hot or cold fluid pipes. They're copper. Put them in a vessel of water, and they're heating and cooling that water. So this is where you integrate your IBC totes, which can store heat at 100 to 120 no problem, or cool, like whatever cool you've got for the summer. That can get you now. So now you take that hot water, so you remove yourself from the heat pump proper, which does only air to air. You're taking heat or cool out of the air, and you're blowing that heat or cool into the air inside the house. But we'd like water because water is a thermal storage medium. Air does not do well for heat storage. It's very low specific heat, how much heat it can embody for a given amount of volume or mass. It's not great. Water is a great heat cool storage medium. So now we're extracting that energy from the heat pump, either hot or cold, into the totes, into the water. Now heat pumps, like you can buy off-the-shelf heat exchangers that do this kind of a thing. You can also relatively simply build your own. You break into the line, add another 100 feet of copper, coil it around, and you've got yourself a heat exchanger. So you're working with a $2,000 heat pump, and you're converting that into storage of thermal energy in water. Now they do have dedicated heat pumps which take air heat or cool and they put it into water. Those, however, cost $6,000 for the smallest ones. So here's a way where, and you could pay that, but here you could pay $1,700 and get that functionality by tapping into the line and doing a heat exchanger. So this is what we were going to begin in this project, in this session here. We didn't get there. We'd like to do that for the next time, but this is after thinking about it, initially we were like, okay, for Suzanne's house, yeah, we could invest in that heat pump. It's not cheap. I mean, $6,000 is quite a price ticket. And then you have to design the whole system around hydronic heating, right? Whereas these simple heat pumps, you just blow in hot air, hot and cool air. And we exchanged the temperature to the second floor. We had vents in the floors for this 2-story building. So it's super easy, low cost to install the air-to-air kind of a heat exchange system. If you talk about now storage, you got to go to water and you got to complicate the system a little bit, but water is good. It allows you to do various things. For example, hydronic heating, you can run that heat into the ground and under the floor. You can run hydronic radiators or whatever, then deliver it to wherever you need through pipes with fluid. So you can now transport that heat to wherever you are. If you have some building, you can pipe it all over the place. And then you got space heating, space cooling, and hot water. If you say you tap hot, you can put coils into your into your heat exchanger. You got to accommodate the ability to also heat water for potable. So that means you've got another closed loop heat exchanger mixed up in your heat exchanger, where you're extracting that water for potable water, which you're not mixing with like the hydronic heating water. Okay, well that's good, because what I described to you, and this will become more real as we go forward, they do make heat exchangers that are the heat pump. You pipe in the hot and cold working fluid through a copper pipe into that, and then out of it comes a hot coil of water, hot water source, or cold, hot or cold. That's attainable off the shelf. It's not cheap. So here, if we can do a simple heat exchanger that costs $500 to $1,000, yeah, then we've used a standard heat pump and made this very low cost and accessible. It's actually a big idea. It's actually if you want a little BHAG, big hairy audacious goal, the thermal battery is a $5 trillion proposition. Why? I already mentioned 70% of all electricity use on the planet is heating, space heating and cooling, and hot water. What's the entire value of all the electrical generation across the world? Oh, it's 7 trillion. This addresses 70% of it. So what I described is if you can scale that, you've got yourself $5 trillion of value. That's a few jobs there. Now, people a lot of times talk about using batteries for storage. Well, if you do some calculations, and I can link to that, it's on a thermal battery page on a wiki. If you use 31 totes for 31 totes that are running up to 120 F, what's that? That's about 10 by 20 foot space. It's a room of totes, 31 totes. That'd get you 12 days of storage if the sun was not shining. Now you're talking about close to Alaska territory, if you had any sun up there. How much would that cost? So that's do the calculations. Water going up 30 degrees Celsius from about 20 to 50, or 10 to 40, 20 to 50 or so Celsius. The thermal storage capacity of water is huge. So 31 of those tanks get you 1 megawatt hour. We're not talking kilowatts, we're talking 1 megawatt hour of thermal energy. This is nuts. Compare that to about 25 Tesla Powerwall equivalent for that amount of energy, which would cost you $400,000. Those totes, 31 of them, we just got a shipment of them for $1,500. $1,500 is less than $400,000. It's not a small deal. This is something to be developed and mainstreamed across the world. So let's talk about a few other things. A few of the other systems. Hydronics, that's an example of the hydronic system from one of the earlier houses we built. If you have your thermal battery, you can do a system where you're running hot water throughout the house. You've got various components in there, pressure, temperature gauges and things. That full design is on the wiki. Now you can use this for cooling as well. So what if you're running that cooled water down through your floor, through perhaps water to air heat exchangers, basically blowers, hydronic blowers. Yeah, you got your space heating and cooling through these kinds of systems. Let's talk about water. What we did actually in CDECO Home 1. That's a diagram of this. So we had a gutter at the top. We actually had we still have that's all built in. A first flush diverter. It's a purifier for the bulk dirt that comes off the roof. And then you go into your totes and then further filtering. So we have the ability to go from the roof or from the pond into that system. We never completed this. Katerina wasn't into ingesting too many microbes in the experimental phase of this prototype. I was. I love that shit. So water system, first you dig we dug this little pond, filled up by rain. We had, doesn't look too clean right here, but it kind of cleans up after a while. Water hydrant, that was the system going into it. Here's the rooftop system. That's how a first flush diverter works. There's a little animation there. That ball rises up with the first flush and closes off the hole so that the water can continue flowing elsewhere. If you see that little animation there. That's how it works. So from a 1,000 square foot roof, like on our house there, the first 10 or 50 gallons you're flushing down the drain by using this diverter system. And that's exactly what we have there. You can see it. That's when we first built the house. That was initially when we built the dog room here. That was the digesters and the compressed earth block floor. We had water storage, 2 totes. We had biodigesters. First we had 4 of them in there. Then we took out 1 and put in the hydronic stove for heating and cooling. This is what we're talking about, our drainage waste system. We actually had that. So we had gray water and biodigester effluent going down, just fertilizing the ground. We had gold water from that toilet I described going into that 55-gallon drum, which we then could use for fertilizer. We never ended up doing that. but that was the intent. We're going to get back into this craziness pretty soon. I mean, urine is a great fertilizer. There's this thing in society right now where we take waste from cities and purify them and throw them downstream. But that's golden fertilizer if you could manage that somehow. So I mean, I think pushing the limits on what's possible there is a good idea, and experimenting like this is worthwhile. So that's what we actually did. And in this system, we had this big pit with gravel, which was basically the soak pit. It was like 50 feet long, and it would be the soak pit where the biodigester effluent would basically soak into that. That's what we did at that time. Actually, it was 75 feet long, 3 by 75, 14 tons of gravel, tar paper on top, buried 1 foot deep with soil, so it looks like you can't see it. But yeah, we dug that whole thing there for drainage at that point. So then you can have a water filter where you have various filter elements. In our rainwater collection, we started with a sand filter on the left. We went to a 500 mesh, 1000 mesh, and more and more filters. You can get as many filters as you like to get it down to potable grade. That's how it looked. We still have that hanging up on the wall there. So we had all those filter elements that would go in there. How about an ozonator? You can get one of these things for $17. You can get an air pump for $14 and blow the ozone into your water storage tank to kill off any microbes. That's pretty cool. That's instead of using, say, chlorine or chloramine, do this. And it's safe. It's ozone. It's free.
I love ozone.
Yeah, ozone is good. Ozonators, they're good for purifying things. Like here, if we leave this house for the winter, we just run the ozonator, ideally to get the mice and all the wildlife out of here, because they run away from that if you just ozonate the whole space. But you kind of have to run it quite a bit. But that's the way to do it. You basically, that thing creates ozone through this high voltage element. That gas, just pump it into your storage of the water. Bam. Very easy. Biodigesters, yeah, they're interesting because you can compress that gas and run automobiles on it. I think that's pretty cool. Done various diagrams of that. We've got a bunch of designs of that. And then at the end of the day, you can plumb that into your regular stove, and you can divert either from, you can run on propane, you can run on biogas. We have not gotten to this stage yet. We're eager to do it. For the hot water system, we did have so we did make a hydronic stove that looks like this. That's what's inside the Cidico Home 1. That's what we built. You have a fire pit and 1 foot, 1 inch tubing on top. Oh yeah, this thing gets hot. That's enough to heat that up, and it gets so hot we had a lot of trouble on overpressure in that system in our house. So we had to keep the flame way down to keep the house warm. Because if some log, like say hedge wood, would like flare up overnight, you're gonna get like overpressure and stuff. So we did all that. We had a blower.
Hedge?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Sure. Oh, how about this now? What if instead of, look at this thing. What's a pellet burner? It's you have a blower and you have pellets dropping into this vessel, and once you get that thing lit, you can just keep dropping pellets. That's how a pellet stove works. You have a little fire chamber, and it keeps dribbling little pellets into there, and that burns. So we did that so we can put that pellet burner module on the front. That didn't go to completion. That was the idea. That would be a good idea, so that, say you make pellets with a pelletizer, you do sawdust, you can make pelletize them. So you can run either on firewood, you can run on pellets for that same hydronic stove. So this is kind of a modular stove, which I think is still worthwhile. We got away from all of that because we switched to heat pumps, which are zero maintenance. This still requires you to manufacture your fuel or collect your firewood. That's the hydronic control panel. That's literally your house. That's the micro house. It's called the micro house. We call it the house with the greenhouse in the front. We call it the micro house because we started with the 14 by 14 micro house, added another one to it, added more until it was like 1,500 square feet. That's the hydronic heating system we used in there. You can see the compressed earth blocks. The wall behind this, which is stucco, that's also compressed blocks. But that was the basic design, not like the whole layout of it, just to make it super transparent. Because these systems can be like expensive and not transparent. So we open source this one with all the parts. You can hyperlinked. You can click on all the parts to see what goes in here if you want to build it yourself. This is in the CDECO Home 1. We did the hydronic in-floor heating, so a bunch of tubes inside there. So that's our house. You can see the brick wall, that's the south-facing wall in the CDECO Home 1, which now Katerina turned into, it's all covered with beaded plywood. But that's what we did. The utility room was back there where the stove is, so that was under construction at that time. We also did this hillbilly heater, just trapping some thermal energy to heat the pool. We also did a thermal electric generator. So this is if you have a hot stove, you can use that temperature gradient to generate. This will generate like 100 watts of electricity. You've got these thermal electric generator modules with a hot side and a cool side. So we did this thing. We never got to running this either. The separating toilet, I discussed that a little bit. Basically, you've got a toilet and a macerator pump, but there's much more to this. I showed you the final product. That was like way up there. This thing was the final product. That's how it looked at the end. But this actually works. You can replicate. The pump down there in the bottom left corner, that's a weak point. Those pumps like last a few years, and then you got to exchange impellers or seals or whatever. So the way we do it in the future would be to use just an off-the-shelf macerator grinder pump in a pump vault. That's a standard way to do it. This is just like a little bit too fragile so you get maintenance every couple of years. But going back down to just a couple more. So super efficient refrigerator. The thing about refrigerators is that stand-up refrigerators don't have good insulation. Chest freezers have excellent insulation. So if you just turn them on for like an hour or two every day and keep them cool, maybe put some cold water at the bottom to keep the cool. Just turn them on for a few hours a day, and that's your refrigerator. If you want a low-cost, super efficient refrigerator that uses 1/8 the energy of a standard refrigerator, it's super easy. So if you're off grid, you can do this. Or the other way I say it right now is get a regular stand-up fridge. At least the freezer compartment is quite well insulated. So fill that with water, fill that with food, freeze that, and that cold keeps the whole fridge cool during the night if you're off grid and you're not powering your fridge at night. So once again, getting around the intermittency of solar, and I mean just a regular fridge with a huge freezer up on top compartment freezer. Then you're getting your energy bills to zero as you run it all solar.
Hot and cold sandwiches and hot soup.
Uh,
Also cold sandwiches.
Here we have a controller actually with a temperature feedback, turning it on and off, but it's actually easy enough. You just turn it on by a simple timer. That works relatively well too. If your food is getting too warm, just set the timer for more time. Because in the summer and winter, it'll be different. Like in the summer, you hardly have to turn on the freezer, convert it into a fridge at all. I mean, less than the summer. The summer is hotter. So that's cool. What else? Oh, that's about it. So the big news out of this thing is the thermal battery. We really look forward to that. This is a big deal, so think about this and make it happen, because we're going to make this happen here. We plan to make this a completely standard feature on every single house we build. Therefore, we're not even going to connect to grid. We're going to say forget that. Amarin and whoever else go away. We got the PV, and at night we just need minimum power. That just maybe a small battery would do it, or you whatever else we do to cover that. So I think it can be quite practical. It's if you're stuck in a system and you think of how the system does, that's like a huge proposition. In fact, I mean, I was pretty scared of this like a few years ago because it's like, how are you going to get it through codes? Now I'm just saying, bring it on. This is ripe. This makes sense. So just do it. I said the water storage is super cheap. $1,500 for the vessels of storage as opposed to $400,000 equivalent in batteries. You take your pick. Okay, I'll leave it at that. And does anyone have any questions?
It's my favorite thing, so I'm not gonna. I've already talked to you about it in detail.
Yeah. So I mean, Suzanne, yeah, we're gonna upgrade your house to this, and you're gonna be either the first or second person in the world doing this for real. So I think that's quite exciting. Yep.
Is there a difference between a heat pump and a heat exchanger?
Yeah, a heat pump is a thing that actually generates the heat or cold by using electricity. The heat exchanger is just a thing that transfers heat from one medium to another.
So
Like, for example, a radiator in a house, hot water radiator, that exchanges the heat from the water into the hot air, hot temperature in a house. Inside a heat pump indoor unit, there's just a bunch of big radiator like in a car. There's a fan behind it. It blows through that radiator. The radiator is filled with the working medium of the heat pump. That medium is cool right now. So you're getting cold into the room. You're blowing that cold, which was originally in the medium produced by the heat pump. So a little bit of calculations, a little bit of basics, the fact that PV is near free and that heat pumps are quite low cost, with a big caveat that, you know, the standard way to do this would be $6,000 for a heat pump that goes from air into water. So you already have that cold or hot water. Okay, but I don't like 6,000, I like 2,000 more. Maybe I'll build a heat exchanger to extract that into water for another 1,000, open source. You know, we can build that. That's relatively easily. We have built things like that back long ago when I was way into steam power, and kind of shifted from that because steam power is awesome, but regular engines are actually even less complicated than steam engines when you come down to high performance. So it's actually much easier to make a regular engine. Now the disadvantage is that steam engines, you can burn anything with them. With regular engines, you need gasoline and other fuels, not just. But I mean, you also have some flexibility like biogas or compressed gas. So all in all, a regular engine is simpler and easier to build. Let's take a look at the heat exchanger that we built on the wiki. Let's say open source heat exchanger to get you an idea of what a heat exchanger is. It's that thing. It's actually one of the 50 Global Village construction set machines.
Oh,
Now we do use it not now in a steam engine, but we're going to use that in the heat pumps. I want to open source the heat pumps. So heat pumps, you got a compressor, you got a heat exchanger, you got some valves. All those components exist. Open source a diagram on ChatGPT. You're halfway there. So that's the way to go, because these heat pumps, we're still at the mercy of their warranty. They're warranted for like 2 years, or maybe 5 years. I don't know, maybe 2 or 5 years. That means you're buying a new one every 5 years. Okay.
James was telling me that he saw a dude that just augured, instead of augering a well, he just augured a pretty deep pit, and he, instead of the coil being together, he kind of like did it almost like a spring, right?
Yeah.
He let it kind of go down in there and used it for geothermal.
Yeah, absolutely. It depends what you're doing. If you're getting that out of the earth, where there's a huge volume of earth mass extending over many feet or many meters, yeah, you're going to have a big coil. Here, the situation is different. You're flame throwing against that. You've got some kind of a burner. It has to be compact to get all that heat. The flame of some burner is only so big. This is a tight, compact thing where the flame is going all around it. So it depends what you're working with. for the design of the heat exchanger. This is a tube heat exchanger. You can have plate heat exchangers. You can have what we did actually. Oh yeah, let me show you this other heat exchanger that for a practical consideration. What do we do there? See that red thing over there? From our hydronic stove, we ran hot water at 120 or something to heat the fish ponds to 90 degrees in the winter. That's another form of heat exchanger. All it is we took PEX tubing, wound it around a drum, and submerged it. That's another heat exchanger. It works with relatively low temperature. You're exchanging the hot inside about 200 or 300. I think we had like 200 or 300 feet in there. You're exchanging that. So that thing back there, you just see the two lines coming out of the water. There's a submerged 55-gallon drum. Submerged 55-gallon drum wrapped with like 200-foot coils of PEX tubing, half-inch PEX.
But where was it getting the 120 degrees from your water heater?
From the open source hydronic stove.
Oh,
This thing
I see.
was getting it from this device,
Oh, I see.
burning wood.
We should make a round one.
So the
Exactly.
PEX was
That's what I
wrapped
thought.
around the drum, or it was
Yeah,
inside the drum?
so let's look at the open source heat exchanger, let's say. Can we find something? No. Open source heat exchange. I have some pictures of that. Oh, no, that's actually the other one. This is another form of heat exchange. That the thing inside the stove, that's a heat exchanger. You're taking the heat of the flame and putting it into the water in the tubes that flow, where water is pumped through the tubes. Using this, there's a pump there. This pump pumps the water through this. So that's the open source heat exchanger. Aquaponic, this would be under aquaponic greenhouse, because that's how we heated the water there. You can see that it's just the thing sticking out there. As far as some of the design docs, yeah, we have it. I'll show you some pictures here. No, I can't. I'm not seeing the pictures. What about in my photos? If I look at heat exchanger, it might show it. This is what it thinks heat exchangers are. No, that's not it. But yeah, I didn't spell it right either, so. This is another one we did. That's a coiled heat exchanger inside a stove. PEX. Let's look at PEX. Heat. How about PEX? Let me see if I can find it here. Got all this stuff. I mean, look at this. We had, in the initial greenhouse, we actually had chickens, we grew mushrooms and stuff like that. We actually did black soldier fly, worms, all that kind of stuff. Let's see. Grow towers, worm tower, composting, water control, chicken house, oyster. Does anyone see the water heater?
I'm getting it. We'll watch your back, okay?
No. Can't find it. Chicken, IPM, water, alpha, decompost tea, water control, 1 tower, aquaponic. Oh, here. No, it's doesn't really understand. How about aquaponic? Little tilapia in there. That's actually that's the 55-gallon drum. That's the heat coil, and it's coiled. Actually, we call it on the inside of the drum. So it's like, as I said, and I was showing that.
So you would heat the water in the PEX that would heat the drum and then emanate out and heat the water.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because there.
Oh.
That's your hydronic heat exchanger.
Wow. Okay.
Did you I'm just trying to think about the mechanics of sinking that. Did you fill the drum with water as well?
Well, that's an
air-filled drum, right?
Right. So that has the bottom cut out of it. So you just put it down and pretty much like sinks.
Okay.
You might have to press down just
Okay.
a couple of pounds or whatever. That's it. That's it. Hydronic heat exchanger.
Wait. So is that all the red is all PEX?
That's all PEX.
Oh, okay.
About 200
so it's
feet
not
of
a
it.
red barrel.
No. That's PEX wound around it. And we left like a little space. You don't really see it, but then we kind of loosened it up so there's a little space. So it has more water surface for heat exchange. Let's see, any other picture? There it is. Right there. Let's see, any other pictures of that? Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. We tied it with, so we tied it to the outside of the barrel.
Awesome.
Oh, in fact, hey, what's going on here? I think at first we put it outside and then we put it inside. I think we redid it like, yeah, I think we redid it like that. Because that way you have the barrel protecting this from getting broken.
Oh, so you like this better?
I like this better. Because think about it, if you're putting it in there, you put it on, get on a sharp corner and you'll puncture the tubing.
Did you want any more spacing between the tubing?
Yeah, you do. You would. We did hydronics everywhere. This is inside the greenhouse. The greenhouse that's disused right now has this PEX in there too. I mean, we went nuts on the PEX. It's a good thing.
What about
And then we actually wait. Did we cover it? Oh, I think we had the insulation. No, that's another person. We had the insulation, and then we put the hydronics on top of that, so we can connect it to that. Yeah.
Well, just today when we were on the roof putting up that the barrier.
And look, we growed that.
Yum.
Yeah. That was when it's fresh right after construction. Look. Yeah. That's what it was like, all right. Mm-hmm. Yep. Any other questions?
Yes, but just keep going.
That's it for me.
Okay, well then, what about today when we were up there and that before we put the solar panels in, we did put the black polyester strain.
Reinforced polyethylene, RPE.
Okay.
Reinforced polyethylene.
When we put that in, it immediately, started generating so much heat, all the heat. And I was considering that I had seen before that you could actually basically make your roofs a giant thermal exchange, right? Instead of solar panels, you could just put that in there, put some tubing in there, and get
Sure.
all the hot water in the world, right? What would you do with that?
I would have to redo that in 10 or 20 years when the plastic decays.
Yeah. That's not
But
too
yeah,
bad.
you could
That's
do
not
that.
too bad, right? You just screw, right? Whatever panels you put on top of there to protect it, either those crack or the UV gets to it, right? You just screw those
Yeah,
off,
that's-
take your tubing out, replace the liner. But what would you
Yep.
do with all that hot water that it was generating? Like where would you exchange it to?
Well,
You
in the summer
personally,
when you
like,
have,
what would you do with it?
it's a utilization thing. Like in the summer, definitely use it for, say you have a bunch of people taking hot showers, definitely that, but you'll probably have an overabundance of it. You know, so I mean, hot water in the house. Store that. In fact, yeah, I mean, yeah, store that. So the thermal battery is using that. You're using that instead of the heat pump. Well, but you're not heating. People still take hot showers in the summer, so yeah, you might have some tanks that are
You could have
storing
it
hot
going
water.
to the floor, though. Couldn't you also have it going to the floor?
In the winter, yeah,
Winter
but in the winter you're going to have much less heat, unless you have that in a greenhouse, in which it's going to be nice and hot still.
Yeah.
I mean, the greenhouse in winter is a magical thing, right?
It is.
Yeah.
I would love to experience that actually. You're
It's like you're at the beach and it's freezing outside. It's so
Yeah,
cool.
it's
It is.
amazing. I
People,
love it.
so my friends that run an herb farm and they have all the greenhouses, they go in there, and they suntan. They like get in there.
Yeah.
With they just go nude and
Yeah.
get their sunglasses on. And also, their greenhouses they just cut were all fresh herbs like mint and rosemary, right? So it's just this totally therapeutic.
Wow. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Pretty much wraps up the utility. So I'll finish this off for now, and we'll continue tomorrow.